It's our golden episode. Paul and I are 40, and this is our 40th episode. So to celebrate, we thought we would watch the 100th episode of Voyager. But I'm getting ahead of myself. As you know, this is The Measure of an Episode, where it is our continuing mission to explore what makes Star Trek proper Star Trek, and not just an interesting take on time travel and second chances and righting wrongs and hoping that each leap will be the next voyage home.
Wait a minute. And I'm Paul.
I'm Jonathan.
And by the criteria by which we judge these episodes, number one, is there legitimate science fiction woven through the plot? Is there a science fiction weave that is used, perhaps as a tapestry? Why can't I think of more effing words for this intro for science fiction?
As a weave.
Okay. And C, is there a conundrum of morality? See, I use a new word. That is
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is a moral tale of some kind inside of the episode. And okay, so this is a very special episode as such. I remember it being sort of tune in for Voyager's 100th episode where, shit hits the fan, and they
right.
show.
Wow.
Actually, I will say,
said
yeah, they did. It was very, very progressive on UPN,
Right. Oh,
and
yeah.
I remember them really because the effects in this, I should say, are very impressive for 1998.
Yes.
I think they spent a lot of the money on the effects and not so much on the locations because it kind of only takes place in two locations.
Voyager and Voyager.
Yeah, well, and the not the runabout. What do they call it?
Not the Defiant.
The flyer.
The radio flyer? No, Delta flyer.
The
There we
Delta flyer. Yeah. So it was a big deal. And I remember it being I remember seeing the blurb and thinking to myself, oh, this is going to be like one of the better Voyager episodes. Like this is a big landmark because now everybody gets to make a bunch of money in syndication.
Right. Yeah. And it was a pretty good episode.
Yeah, I have to say. It kind of delivered. Directed by LeVar Burton, also
Yes.
known as Chakotay in the show. No? Nothing? Okay.
Sorry, I got distracted and I was like, wait, what?
I have so many questions. Rewind.
Wait, Chakotay was the guy who did Reading Rainbow?
Okay, so let's just jump right into... Did I read the blurb already? That's right. Did I read the blurb? Has it been read?
No.
No. A miscalculation by Ensign Kim causes a fatal crash during Voyager's first test with slipstream... God, I can never get that.
Couldn't get it last week, can't get it this week.
I know, with travel. It's the with slipstream. My tongue won't do that. Anyway.
So it says slipstream travel, right? There's no time involved?
No, there's no time.
Okay.
Just kind of jumping into the episode. The show starts out... I love the way it started out, even though it's kind of boring. These people just beam down. We see these hooded figures. We don't know who they are. They beam down into this kind of Arctic landscape, and they spend, I want to say, at least 2 minutes just walking around. And this is setting the mood. And maybe it's because I knew it was coming, that there is kind of a big mystery, a big reveal coming up. But I guess you would kind of think that anyway, because they're taking their time getting into it, right? There's no banal conversation at the end. They're not talking us through, well, we have to walk through and find it. There wasn't sort of chatter while they're walking. It's just them walking. And I liked it. That seemed to me one of the more science fiction-y things in the show.
Yeah. No, I would agree with that. And well, the reason why, well, I wouldn't necessarily say this is the reason why, but the writers and the director, they wanted it to be with no lines of dialogue at all until they actually got inside the ship. And the writers and the director, they were like, they said to themselves that it was a little bit too, they had to put in some dialogue, but with having to put in some dialogue, they were pretty happy with how it turned out. And I would agree. I think that they did not have to do what you just said. They don't have to explain anything that's going on by getting there and seeing Voyager under the ice and then beaming in and talking about what they need to do. They're peeling back layers without saying, find 7 of 9 so we can find her chronometer or whatever it's called. Like they needed the doctor to be the outside person to talk to and explain stuff to him. But I don't feel like they just info dumped on him. It felt like they were providing him the information as it was needed and as we would be getting it too. So I thought that was pretty cool.
They didn't need they didn't need an audience stand-in for that whole beginning. There was no information. And I can see them saying, we don't want to give away who this is because because they do reveal that it's Voyager under the ice. We don't want people to think, well, it's Chakotay and Ensign Kim. I can hear it from their voices. So the mystery is kind of gone at that point. So I actually would have preferred if they had no talking until they beam in. And then you only know it's them when they beam and they take their hoods off. Which, by the way, just because they're inside of Voyager doesn't mean it would be any warmer in there. Like, they would still be whatever temperature it is on the outside. I guess it would be less windy. I guess that's true.
Well, yeah, it would be less windy. And it's how much later? It's 15 years? 20 years?
Yeah. I mean, maybe it's really well insulated in there. It would be fine. But probably not.
Yeah, I feel like either the deeper you go, the warmer it would be, or closer to the surface.
After 15 years, I don't think nothing is that well insulated. I think eventually it would just come to the temperature of whatever the surrounding area is. It wouldn't be as windy, but it still would be effing cold.
Yeah. Can you imagine how great that would have been? Like they kept all the material on and we didn't see them until they actually got back to the Delta Flyer.
That would have been
almost
interesting.
That whole first act was just these scavengers, essentially. We don't know who they are or what they're doing. But that first act reveal would have been so at the end of the first act instead of at the opening of the first act. Like that would have that would have just had so much more impact. Because you're trying to figure out who are these scavengers and how do they know so much about Voyager and where's the Voyager crew and what time we don't know that it's 15 years in the future. We just know that something is probably going to change timeline wise because obviously Voyager's under ice.
And it would have been cool because I would have thought that if we didn't know who these people were and they weren't talking and their actions weren't necessarily benign or malign, that I would have thought, oh, these are the people that caused this. These are the people because they start sort of harvesting things from the ship and they start harvesting the Doctor. They start harvesting stuff from Seven, and you're thinking to yourself, oh, these are the bad guys. How are they going to get out of this one? And later we kind of learned that is the case. Just not.
Yeah, they are the bad guys. Yeah,
they are kind of the ones. But it is funny. So they start looking around, for Janeway, and Ensign Kim finds Janeway and kind of makes her way up to her. And he's like, "I just need to make sure she's still dead." Yep. Okay, we can go.
Right. Have your phaser ready just in case.
It would have been great if she was still in her chair, with a grimace on her face, totally frozen over. The Shining with a cup of coffee in her hand, So how I said how I loved the beginning. The cold open is great television for me.
Yes.
Boy, do they fuck that up. Because the next scene where we transition into the past and they're having this kind of slipstream christening, the slipstream drive, and they do this thing where we have to do this lap around the ship where every character does their stereotypical thing, where it's like a comedy thing. I was thinking to myself, why are we doing this? We're 5 seasons in. This is the middle of season 5. We know who these people are.
You have to do that roll call at the beginning. Here's where all the characters are, or, just kind of a throwaway line talking about where they are, what they're doing. And but being the 100th episode, I'm sure that they wanted to have at least a moment for everybody, especially the fact that it's time travel and we're only dealing with 2 characters through the majority of it. But the thing that got me about it was the dialogue of 7 of 9. It just felt, again, kind of like last week's episode with Spock. It felt not stunted or stilted.
My visual processors and motor cortex, they are malfunctioning. I was simply trying to perfect my social skills, as you instructed me to do. You have always been of enormous assistance to me, Doctor. You are my mentor. We are as one. We are as one.
Like they were trying too hard. They were trying too hard to impart this character without giving them something to do. It would have been so much better if they were not christening this thing where there's nothing to do, but still working on it. And a great way to do that would have been, instead of having Paris be the only one who is concerned about the efficacy of the slipstream drive, that they're all doing a simulation and they're all working on stuff. And then you impart character through what they're doing, which, by the way, is how the rest of the show does it. Like they don't have to have nothing to do in order for them to be having character to do, right? This is what makes Next Gen fun, is that we get the little bits of character in the course of the plot, not the other way around.
Right. Yeah. Well, and so the part that threw me off with the 7 of 9 being drunk was they talked about synthahol, like her blood synthahol level. And I could have sworn that synthahol was a non-inebriation substitute to alcohol.
Oh, my understanding of it is that it does not hurt you in the way that alcohol does, meaning it doesn't cause inflammation and give you, blood damage. Blood damage? Sorry, medical moment is coming up. But it doesn't have the negative effects on your body that alcohol does, but it still makes you drunk. Because what would be the point of synthahol if it doesn't make you drunk?
Well, right, and that's what I thought. Like, it was just they had figured out a way to. I mean, we kind of already have it. Like
I guess the taste.
The near beer, and like we don't have non-alcoholic tequila or non-alcoholic scotch.
Right.
So that's what I assumed it was. It was that you were able to make all of these drinks and still provide the flavor without having any of the consequences, but that included inebriation.
I always looked at it as something where you just weren't hungover in the morning. You get as drunk as you wanted, and you felt great in the morning.
Okay,
that's what I hope it is.
Right.
That's what I hope it is.
So 400 years in the future, when you're drinking it, you can be like, "Yes, I was right." For 300 years.
Cheers. Yeah. So I hated the lap, the character lap that we were doing. Then Paris says, I got a bad feeling about this. I've been running these simulations. And so tell me something. Why wouldn't they run the simulations on this new technology, this new hardware that they, and make sure that everything's cool, and then build the warp drive?
Well, so again, like the way I interpreted that, and I sounds like I'm wrong based on what you're saying, but the way I interpreted it was they had done all of the tests and the schematics before they built it. It's just that Paris was actually doing some like literal test runs, seeing how Voyager would act in the slipstream. I think it was one of those things where you focused on whether or not you could. You never focused on whether or not you should.
So wait, he made dinosaurs? What?
No, he brought back Animaniacs.
Nice. So maybe he found something that nobody else found, right? Which seems like something that should not be reserved for Tom. Tom Paris is like the jock, right? He flies them. He doesn't test them. I guess he's
exactly. It should have been B'Elanna. Yeah.
Or something. Or Tuvok. This seems like something Tuvok would figure out. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But they find something. Right. Anyway, it just seems like a writing crutch here. That they I feel like they could have done it in a more plausible manner where they happen upon something by accident instead of them basically ready to turn it on, and all of a sudden they find this catastrophic problem with the warp or slipstream drive. I don't know. It just it kind of bumped me.
Right. No. And it's the military blanket on the front line. And I think again, because the episode was focused on Kim, they needed to have a character who interacts with Kim on a regular basis, and I feel like that's kind of what happens in Star Trek and probably other ensemble shows as well. But there's a character who is focusing on the issue that it wouldn't necessarily be their issue. Like Dr. Crusher and Data working together on the exocomps. Like, why?
Yeah. And
so like Data I get, but why is Dr. Crusher hanging out with him? Well, it's because she hasn't been on for like 15 episodes and they need to have she needs to get her money's worth. And so it's kind of the same thing. Like, because it's about Ensign Kim, he's not going to be like Tuvok would not go to Ensign Kim and ask him to man the helm while he runs the tests.
Yeah. I maybe what would have worked better for me is Paris says something along the lines of, I don't think it's going to work. We need to call it off. And then Ensign Kim gives his speech. He gives sort of a speech that convinces Janeway to do some more tests or whatever, or however. He gives a speech, right? Mm-hmm. And I felt like Paris, because they're both friends, Paris should have said, look, I respect you, but you're wrong, and this could very well kill everybody. And Ensign Kim, in his hubris, says, no, I've run this test, I built this damn thing, I know it's fine, it's going to be fine, trust me. And then they do it, and then you have this thing. So you have this moment where somebody tried to warn him, and that's sort of what causes his grief and his guilt at the latter half of his or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
And then it's a little bit more believable, because what I hate about, there's this trope in badly written television where something happens where a character accidentally does something, and that causes something bad to happen. And it's obvious that it is an accident, but yet they still blame themselves as though they pulled the trigger themselves. I don't know if I'm being too vague about it, but it's usually something where, no, if it wasn't for me, they wouldn't have been here, and it's all my fault. It's like, no, it was just an accident. You know, it could have happened to anybody. Versus this scenario where you told us this was going to work fine. You gave us your assurance that it was going to happen. And in a way, like, it kind of wasn't Kim's fault, right? He did the wrong calculations or whatever, but I felt like having 15 years of guilt and grief, it didn't live up to the bad thing that happened. I don't know. I don't know. It would have been a lot more stronger and more focused source of his guilt. Right.
Well, and I have to disagree, just because I understand what you're saying, and I agree with the trope, but he did push for it. I think that the storyline that you're providing, where they were discussing it, and Paris just is uneasy about it, and Kim says, no, it'll work. I think that would have added just that much more to it. But I do think that he was insistent enough in his impassioned speech to the crew and Janeway, and the fact that he gave the wrong calculations back to 7 of 9. I think that, those two things combined would definitely be sitting with him for this amount of time. I think the scene that you're talking about, it would have been great. Like, it just would have been a good character moment. It would have just shown that much more of how insistent and headstrong Kim was being. But but also maybe it would have been one too many. We get it at this point.
Well, and it would have been a different pivot point for that moment of everybody's trusting Kim. Whereas everybody else kind of, like, the way it is now, everybody signed off on it. Everybody's like, yeah, I agree, it's going to work. Everybody thought it was going to work. Whereas if everybody was just trusting Kim, whereas they had evidence to the contrary, and they were trusting him, oh my God! Like, I wouldn't even try and travel back in time. I would just kill myself.
Right, you wouldn't have survived this long. Yeah.
But anyway, instead we get My Dinner with Janeway, and we get to indulge ourselves with the vagaries of Janeway's and Chakotay's relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that was a great scene of her talking about how horrible her cooking was.
Yeah. By the way, it's not cooking when you have a machine do it for you. It's not cooking.
Well, yeah. Like, why is she so worried about the dish? I get that, she's preparing the recipe, I guess, like, through the replicator, but
she typed it in. She typed it in.
Yeah. Like, she typed it in. And it takes zero time to make another one.
Like, if I take a book and type it into Microsoft Word, I'm not writing that book. That's what she did. She typed a recipe into a machine, and it made the dish. Like, she didn't cook anything, right?
Oh, okay. Well, right. So again, I was thinking that she had this idea for a dish that was a combination of a couple things, or it was a recipe that she grew up with, and so she's trying it. But again, like, if you are making a dish for a dinner, when you have the ability to create and destroy in moments, like, take all day to make 17 different dishes of it, or 35 as you're trying to get the recipe just right. Like, don't do it once. And I know that they're rationing, but she's also the captain, and they're expecting to get home.
Okay, so then we jump ahead to the future, and we see Chakotay and Ensign Kim in their future makeup, in their old men makeup. And
yeah, which really wasn't bad.
No, I liked it. It was subtle. I appreciated it. And Ensign Kim has apparently channeled all of his grief into a mullet.
Yep. I mean, what else are you going to do with it?
He's like, I must suffer as they have suffered. Okay, so then they wake up the doctor and they bring him up to speed as far as what they're doing. And they kind of go through the whole thing, and we're going to send a message back to Seven through time.
I love that the doctor called him Ensign, and he's like, don't call me that.
Just like strangling him.
Well, yeah, like, and I get that it's like because of the Starfleet Association, but it's also he's been an ensign for 5 years with no promotion. Like,
I'll tell you what, Harry, you stop killing people, maybe we'll promote you. But until then, you're staying an ensign.
At least Brandon Braga. I don't remember if Rick Berman's still on it or not, but the reason why Kim never gets promoted is because he had the position that the crew had to have an ensign. We did talk about this. We talked about it with Icheb. Ensign Icheb. That's right. Yeah. But yeah, like that blows my mind that they were not willing to promote and grow this character just because they needed an ensign.
Yeah, I feel like it would have been better though, just because you promote him though. And also it's kind of vague in terms of who's in charge of what on the ship, at least how they do it in Voyager. I feel like you're right, but it would have been better if he would have resigned his commission, but still remained on the ship.
Well, where else is he going to go?
Well, yeah. I guess that he was in danger of being eliminated from the show, but they felt that they found out that he was one of the biggest draws, and they kept him. Didn't you? Maybe you told me that, or somebody told me that. I didn't just make it up.
Yeah, I don't remember that. Okay.
We don't do that on the show.
No.
Not yet. We make nothing up.
Set that clock back down to 0.
I would have liked it if not, doesn't have to be Ensign Kim, but maybe Ensign Kim replaces the person who resigns their commission, and you have this sort of floating character who's like, look, not my job anymore. Like they come to them for information or their experience or something having to do with an emergency.
Yeah.
And then they're like, no, not my job. I'm just here. Like I'll scrub the decks. I'll do whatever. But you made the decision. Like maybe the reason the person resigned was because Janeway, strangely, made a poor decision in relation to the crew. And he's like, look, I can't be a part of this. Like I will earn my keep. I will earn my rations, however you choose to do that. You know, I'll keep watch in the brig. You know, I'll stand there for 17 hours by myself with nobody in there. But I'm not. I hereby resign my commission. I'm going to go back and read thick novels with no covers on them. And that
right.
But then you have. I mean, it probably Kim doesn't like an ensign. They're like, well, we can just promote somebody else. Ensigns are not hard to come by. But if it was somebody like Chakotay, that would have been very interesting because you could sort of manufacture the thing like, look, he was the best at this and we need him and he's not going to do it. How do we fix this? And it would be like a season-long arc of something where they try, by the end of the arc, he has a reason to come back. And you have that moment where he puts his pin back on, you know? And
right,
they demote Ensign Kim back to Ensign. I meant...
Yeah, the episode ends with "son of a bitch." Just take the pips off Ensign.
Hand them over, Harry. So they bring the Doctor up to speed, and they spell everything out for the audience. Like you have to be a super idiot to not understand what's going to happen. The plan. They laid it out for us in this teller scene. Actually, not badly written teller scene. And then they make the Doctor say,
"A message back through time?"
And we talked about this in the last episode, where you don't need to give us the 4. You just need to give us the 2 + 2, and we'll do the math. And they didn't do that again. It's like this. It's this weird TV thing where it's like, well, we need to make sure 100% of the people get it.
Right. The Doctor working. I mean, they showed at the beginning. The Doctor working so closely with 7 of 9, he would have been able to piece that together. Like they didn't need to have that little bit of dialogue. He could have just said, "You're planning on using 7's chronometer or whatever it's called."
And frankly, the second he got connected to the computer on the future runabout, he would have been brought up to speed immediately because he has access to all of the future database. And so he wouldn't have needed to process this with a question that's already been answered.
Right.
So I don't know. I hate that stuff. You don't need it.
Right. And right. I mean, it's one of those things where it's those details where they're writing it both for new audience members and returning audience members. So, you know, it's got to be a very tricky dance to do. But that would have been a great moment where the Doctor comes to the Delta Flyer, you know, and he's like, "I just downloaded your database," and you're, you know, like, and he's telling them like what they're doing, and
right,
you know, like kind of in a shocked way. Like, kind of continuing the conversation as if they told him, and he's now seeking clarification on like what the plan is. I understand that you're sending a message back in time, but like, how are you going to do it? And
yeah, you could have some very clever writing. You have an opportunity there because you're talking to a computer, sort of like talking to Data. You don't need to explain anything to Data. He's already ahead of you in terms of processing all of the information, right? He's always, I mean, if you think about Data in the course of a conversation, like in those conferences that they have, those senior conference member things, he's just sitting there bored as hell the whole time.
Oh yeah, he's just waiting for everybody to catch up and turn to him and say, "Can it be done?" Maybe that's why he has no emotion. He can't get bored.
Would you like to put in your emotion chip, Data? No, I'll kill myself if I do that. No, absolutely not. Boredom is an emotion, and unless we can take that out, that is a hard no, a standing no on the emotion chip.
No.
So there is something I do like about that scene with the Doctor, or actually the whole thing, because the Doctor immediately becomes a fugitive because they include him. They're basically future Chakotay and Ensign Kim are fugitives. And so
we told you everything. You're an accomplice now. You got to stay with us.
Exactly. But I like that the Doctor remains himself. He doesn't become panicked. He doesn't become, what would you call it? Angry. He doesn't become dismissive. He's kind of just his casual, I'm going to crack some jokes. It's sort of outlined that he's not human, that he's not going to react like any normal person would, considering all the information he's just learned.
Right. Well, and something else that they didn't play with, which would have been neat. I just read a book about this kind of thing. The entire crew was there 10 seconds ago. And now Kim and Chakotay are 15 years older and everybody's dead. Like it would have been neat to, because he does have that personality, it would have been neat to have him have like, a couple, like, you should check with the captain, or, some like, and have those moments where he's just still needing to process what the time lapse, and kind of, have those moments of regret and clarity right away. Like, you should check with the captain. Sorry. Right.
I don't know if you can give credit to, what's the guy's name that plays the Doctor?
Robert Picardo.
Yeah. Nice. I don't know if that the credit goes to him or the writing, or maybe both, but I don't know. I appreciated that he just didn't become a different person in that scenario.
Yes, I agree.
And so, okay, there's a point where Chakotay finds Janeway's final message. It's like a fragment of it that we hear the full one of later, which is kind of neat. I liked that sort of element of that we're learning. And they do that a couple of times with Harry Kim's message to himself, which is kind of neat. But he says to his girlfriend, Chakotay's future girlfriend, when they're right before they're about to, to pull the trigger, she says, we don't have to do this. And I was like, what? Why would you say that now? Like, you're already past the point of no return by a long shot. Like, it strikes me as an empty thing to say, because he obviously doesn't mean it. Because she's like, no, we should definitely go ahead and do it, since we're kind of wanted and under the threat of execution by the whole galaxy. So I think that we should just, go ahead and carry out the plan. Would have been great if you said this before we stole warp technology.
Again, this would have been nice to know yesterday.
Yeah. I don't know. It seemed like again, kind of bad writing in a way to show us that they obviously love each other. This is not another one of Chakotay's flings, that they're trying to ingratiate the couple to the audience. And that was a bad way to do it, to say for Chakotay to say, no, we don't have to do this.
You'll still love me if this doesn't work, right?
Wait a minute. Maybe we didn't quite outline the plan to you 100%. So we're going to cease to exist after the plan. If we are successful or not successful, we're either going to die or we're going to die. Those are the two outcomes that we can look forward to.
I'm going to explain this in a way that you can understand. So, honey, why don't you come here and sit on my lap, and I will. I'll go over this one more time. I'll use small words.
I don't know why she would invite him to sit on her lap, though.
Nice, the way to flip that misogyny from Star Trek. Good job. But I did not hear we. I heard you. Like, you still have time to, or you don't have to follow through with this.
Oh, really? I thought she said we. I don't, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
that's what I would.
Yeah. If he said we, I agree 100% with everything you said. But if he
Well, I will
did
go
say you,
back.
which
I will go back and get the clip, and we'll see who is right.
In just a few hours, if all goes as planned, we'll have changed history. The past 15 years, erased. We don't have to do this.
Now you tell me.
he does say we,
He says we. We don't. He basically lays out for her the past 15 years erased, like she's not up to speed on what's
Right?
happening. She should have been like, "What? What's happening? You said we just had to go on a little, like you wanted to show me something." No. Like, we're going back right now.
right? Unless he means we, like you and I, like I can just do this alone. We don't have to do this. Like that's the only way I can think. Because otherwise, yeah, like. Wait, now you're telling me we don't have like everything that I put in has been under the assumption that yes, we have to do this. Like, no, we're not doing it.
Actually, what is her skill? Why is she there? Does she have a skill, or is she just
Kim blatantly says because they're having sex.
Oh,
Like-
I like that. I like new Kim. I like old Kim, not new. Old Ensign Kim. I like him.
He's the new old Kim. He's not the old new Kim.
Yeah.
Throw out to our listeners. So we decided that we were going to do finished live action series. And that was because we didn't really want to bother with the animated series. But now there's Lower Decks, which means there's 2 animated series, and there's Discovery and Picard, which are both new and out right now. So do you guys want us to analyze and review these new series and the animated series based on, the kind of change our rule and just do any and all Star Trek shows, and analyze and review based on our criteria? So let us know. You can email us at TheMeasureOfAnEpisode@gmail.com or write a review on any of the podcast streaming sites that you go to, and just let us know, in there if you want us to do that. We're happy to do it. We just want to know what you guys think.
Yeah, let us know because we would love to do it. We would love to talk about them. Just let us know that you care. Okay, so there's a point where the doctor does a 7 of 9 autopsy, which to me was one of the coolest parts of the episode. Because he's just basically holding her skull and kind of
Yes,
trying to work on it.
yes. I looked away and I went back to the TV and is that her skull that he's just holding in his hand and taking out the part and
just casually holding it. I felt
Right.
like that was purposeful. They wanted it to be a like, oh, this is like, and I love that he's just so casual walking around with it. It's like, I'm working on it. And nobody else seems to be moved or anything like that about the fact that he's just holding Seven's brain.
Right.
Yeah. So there is a slight nitpicky thing that I want to bring up. Slightly nitpicky. The doctor says
Okay.
Seven's transleak frequency is 108.44236000. And
What?
I'm thinking to myself, okay, I know this is a science fiction show, and this is a computer reading off a bunch of numbers. And there's nothing that a computer can do better than generate numbers and read them off, right? You don't need the trailing zeros after a decimal.
There
You
go.
don't need them.
Yep. Okay. Glad we were on the same page there.
Why are they there?
Yeah.
It just I don't know why. I know this is not this type of show where we totally nerd out like this, but it seemed, first of all, the writers had to make that number.
Mhm.
Why write in the trailing zeros? I can only think that it was some sort of inside joke, or that number is somebody's address or phone number or something like that. But I don't know. It bugged me. Did you notice it? Tell them that you noticed it.
I did not. So read the number to me again.
108.44236000.
108.44236000.
Because the difference between 108.44236 and 108.44236000, there's no difference. Same number.
Right. So, well, I wonder if there's anything about like frequency that would require, like maybe it's supposed to end with 2, 4, 6, 8 digits.
Even so, there would be, if that was true and there was some sort of method or format to this particular type of number, he would just leave it out and the computer would fill it in. In fact, the fact that he's audibly saying something and not Bluetoothing
right.
the number over to the computer, I don't know why he's not doing that. He's a computer himself who he walks around with a Bluetooth, hologram Bluetooth thing.
Well, and I think that's so he can share the information with other people.
I guess so. Poorly, by the way. Bluetooth works like half the time. Anyway. Okay, so then Captain LaForge
That's a really good point.
shows up. And we're like, oh, Captain LaForge. Captain LaForge. He himself, which is another stick, and sticking it to Harry then, because he's still an ensign.
See, and with hard work, you too can.
Like he comes on screen, is like, hello, this is not Ensign LaForge. How are you, Harry?
This is a once ensign for like maybe 6 months, and then I got promoted.
But if anything, Captain LaForge's communicator pen was cool looking. I liked that they were like, oh, this is what the future is going to look like in terms of communicator pens.
Yeah, I like the future communicators in general. Like, I feel like they always do such a good design. But this is also not the first time we've seen this pin.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
Yeah, it wasn't a new design for the episode.
It seemed cumbersome. It seemed like it. I feel like they should shrink, not get bigger. But I liked it nonetheless.
Well, they do more now. It'll.
Are they also? What do you make food with? What's things called?
Replicators.
Replicator. Yeah.
Yeah, they're just pocket replicators now. You can grab your snack on the go. That way, you don't have to go find a replicator.
That was always a problem. Where is a replicator?
It just uses your atoms.
That's how you get hungry. Is you make your meal.
I mean, you're just putting it right back in you anyway, so it's not a big deal.
Yeah. But I guess you never have to poop again. That's done.
Right. Yeah.
Do they poop? Yeah, I guess they'd have to.
Yeah. Yeah, there's actually a toilet directly off of the bridge and Next Generation.
I am surprised there's not a YouTube video of somebody coming onto the bridge and you just hear a toilet flushing in the background. Report.
Well, what's funny is they're actually, I mean, they never acknowledge it, but there are episodes where characters will walk onto the bridge from the bathroom. Like,
really?
where the bathroom is supposed to be. Yeah, they will walk on from that direction.
So
all right, so we derailed a little bit.
So that's why you don't leave trailing zeros at a decimal. It's always funny. So what I did like about the whole Captain LaForge thing is that they give Chakotay and LaForge kind of a moment together. I don't know if it's in this scene or the latter scenes where LaForge doesn't view Chakotay as an enemy. He says,
no, not at all. Yeah,
I see what you're doing. I have to stop you. You're kind of going to kill my children if you don't. If I let you do it.
Yep.
And you understand. And they kind of have this understanding as two guys, right? And I liked those moments. It wasn't just a lower your shields or you'll be boarded. It wasn't that kind of crap.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. Because it was also something, look, we just, not just, but in our history, like, we have an episode where LaForge did do this. Like, everyone was telling him to let it go and stop searching for his mom, and he was like, no, I need to find her. She's down there. And, so kind of, he's like, I would have done, I'd probably do the same thing. It's like, no, you did do the same thing. So,
yeah. And so then we get into the meat of the plot line where Voyager, they do their slipstream, right? They go, they make it happen. And there's a point, I don't remember what happens, but they get knocked out of the slipstream. And so let's talk about space for a second. So space is mostly empty, right? That's why they call it space. I mean, even though when we see visualizations of the galaxy or visualizations of our solar system or anything like that, things are kind of close together just for the sake of efficiency. So you can see that, sometimes they're at scale, sometimes they're not, but whatever. But space is mostly space. So much that you could shoot yourself at the speed of light in any direction from Earth, any direction. And it's unlikely ever that you will collide with anything, ever. That's how, like, you would have to you have to have a destination in mind. You can't just go and expect to arrive somewhere. That it's mostly empty, mostly empty. I mean, you might encounter some like dust and stuff like that, right? But and errant atoms roaming the universe. But in terms of planets and stars and moons and asteroids, you probably will not hit anything. So this idea that happens a lot in Star Trek where they come out of warp and there's an emergency and the ship is damaged, much like what happens in this thing. They come out of the slipstream. There's a planet 100 million kilometers away, and it's always this super accessible thing. That I just wanted to point out that this is not that's sort of a trope that is totally incorrect, or at least totally implausible in real life. That would never happen.
Right.
Most likely,
Okay.
unless there's something I don't know, which is also unlikely.
Well, yeah. I mean, I figured laws of average. I mean, it might take you a long time, but I figured any direction you went, you would eventually hit something. And just I guess I never thought about how long it would take you to hit something, but I just figured with how stuff is spread out, doesn't matter what direction you go, you would eventually run into something.
Right. I mean, I'm sure eventually, yes, over the course of hundreds, if not millions of billions of years, something. You would
right, but
with
yeah,
something.
I didn't think it would take that long. Traveling at the speed of light, I figured like you would hit something within a month. That's kind of how I was picturing space. A month on the outside.
The way I understand it, I mean, I could be wrong. I'm not an astrophysicist at all, but
right.
The way I understand it is even in our solar system, our densely packed solar system, you would not hit anything. Even with the asteroid belt and everything, you would still just not hit anything. It wouldn't happen. Which is super interesting, right? If you think about that is how empty space is.
I guess it kind of makes sense too, because if you think about our solar system, just our solar, like it's on essentially a 2D plane. Mm-hmm. There's stuff around it above and below, but all the planets are orbiting the sun on the same axis.
Right.
And so yeah, I mean, you shoot off in any of those directions that is not that axis, and I guess, well, even that axis, you've got danger. I mean, the asteroid belt, you're probably going to hit something in there, but
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think just in order for us to hit Mars, to actually plan on intentionally hit a planet, it takes a remarkable amount of planning, because it's not like it's very difficult to do just to try and hit something, but with a rocket ship. So, I mean, maybe I'm getting it wrong. Maybe because of the densely packed asteroid belt, that maybe
no, but you're right.
Likely.
Like the asteroid belt. I read something recently, and I forget where it was, but the asteroid belt, the artist's rendition of the asteroid belt is far more packed than how the asteroid belt actually is. Like there's a notable amount of debris in that orbit compared to other places, but it's not packed in the same way that it's always represented in TV and films and art. And so yeah.
It's not like Star Wars, where they go in Empire, where they're sort of they're going through an asteroid field and they're kind of having to dodge them every couple of seconds. Like that would not, at least not in our asteroid belt, that would not happen. They're miles and miles and miles apart, every little, speck of dust, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. That happens in this episode, and I wanted to point out that it's a very convenient trope that whenever they pop out of warp in an emergency, that they encounter a planet close by, which, by the way, also happens to be inhabitable in some way. That's not just a gas giant. Some kind.
Right.
Space is very habitable for the people of Star Trek for some reason.
Mm-hmm. For some reason. Because the show would be super boring otherwise, Paul.
Super boring. It'd just be pieces of ship floating through space for most of the episodes, if it was realistic. And blood, like just coagulated on top of them. So Ensign Kim, he sends the first message, it doesn't work. So he realizes, or maybe he's told by the doctor, can't we send another message? Aren't we time traveling here? So he's like, yeah, I can fix it and then send it again. But he realizes, they say, well, I can't, it took me 15 years to send the wrong one. You think it'll take me 30 seconds to fix it? I can't do that. And then the doctor says, oh, well, why don't we, instead of trying to correct it, why don't we throw them off course so they are saved? And Ensign Kim is, what a great idea I've just had. Let's do that.
I'm a genius.
Yeah. So they send another message back to 7 of 9, who has theoretically already received the first message. So I don't understand how this works in the time travel mechanics here, that you can send two messages. Wouldn't 7 be confused, regardless of when she received them, that there's at least two messages here happening? And so is there any, like, this is, again, maybe better not talked about, because once you go down the time travel wormhole, like you never get out of it.
Yes, what we've learned about time travel is it's best not to think about time travel.
Yeah.
No, so I think this actually plays better into the Worf episode, that great Worf episode. Which one is it?
Parallels?
Yeah, where every time he sends a new one back, it's actually creating a new time stream. So she's not getting 300 over and over and over. She's getting one, and that's, and then she makes those choices, and that's the branch that we're following for that moment until they die, and then we follow a different one where they try a different way and die.
But see, that kind of ruins the whole construct of time travel, at least in this particular kind, where, okay, if you're just going to say that a new time or a new timeline branches off from the old, and if you look at time, it's just sort of this gigantic tree-looking thing of different timeline. I feel like that kind of ruins it. That lowers the stakes. It's like, oh, well, okay, so that means everything is happening at the same time, and there's just a universe out there where the right thing happens, and it just, I don't know, it's not as fun to me. Okay, so they essentially, the plan works, and they have this nice moment, this very triumphant moment for Kim when he sends the final message at the very last second. He's like, yes! And then explodes.
And then the ship blows up. Yep.
Yeah. I appreciated that. And then it throws them off course, and they're like, oh, well, I guess it didn't work. And so like, well, it didn't work the first time we tried it. Let's take it apart and never use it again. Right? But they say that we got 10 years closer to Earth by using the slipstream for the short amount of time that we're using it. So why don't they just leapfrog with that?
Uh-huh.
Right?
Yes.
Like, they could,
yes.
They're only 70 years away. So do that 6 more times and you'll be home that evening, right?
Right. Yeah, just every time before the resonating frequency gets too great, just
turn it off.
Dissipate the slipstream. Yep.
Yeah, and then do it again.
Yeah, that's how you stall move a car. Yeah.
I really like the scene where they pay off Harry's obsession. They pay off the moment when he kind of watches the video of himself, which would be very disconcerting. But if you really think about watching a video from yourself in the future, I don't know. It would be that to me is one of the bigger themes of this, not theme, but the science fiction element is, it's like, oh, that's interesting. But Janeway does shoot him a creepy smile for some reason. I don't know. And they follow it. I don't know if it's on purpose, but it's sort of a mildly disgusted look by Harry. He's like, oh.
I don't think you should date an ensign.
The answer's no.
Hard no.
And that's the end of the episode. They're saved to have another episode once again.
So right, and so I think what should have happened with that explosion is that Kim says, his triumphant yes, and we start to see the explosion, and then it goes back to 7 of 9. So like we know the explosion happened, but also in so sending that message, that timeline got erased. And so we don't actually get to see the full explosion happen.
Oh, so you're saying that even videos that were recorded in a different timeline would disappear. Things that are hard-coded into the past, as it were, because it's sort of it's a message in 7 of 9's inbox, that also disappears. That it's just, wouldn't it be interesting if it's just a blank, it's the recording is still there, but Harry is gone from the room.
Oh, that would be weird.
And he's like, what is this? What? And it's sort of a mystery. And maybe it kind of haunts Harry Kim in the sense that he's like, why is this? It was addressed to me. It's got my name on the, it says Harry Ensign. It says ensign at Voyager.net. He's like, there's only one ensign, so it's got to be you. And he's like, why would they send me a recording of a blank room? And maybe he kind of goes back to that and eventually turns into a maniac and kills everybody because he doesn't know why. I don't know. Always trying to make the show better. That's all.
Right. Well, yeah, and then regrets it and then has to go back in time, and thus it becomes a closed time loop.
Oh, we nailed it. That's why it's called timeless. Okay, so that's the end of the episode. I happen to think it is a genuine Star Trek episode. Proper Star Trek
absolutely. Episode. Yeah. I mean, it's got time travel, and it's got somebody saying, kind of at the last minute, hey, you don't have to join us for this.
And in terms of morality, he realizes that he doesn't have to sleep with his captain, even though that's
right.
What's implied. Like, he handles that well.
Yeah, so well.
Again, even though we've talked a lot about this episode, it feels like we haven't talked enough about this episode. I feel like we still need to break down, especially in the idea of the time travel trope, right? It feels like we've left some stones unturned. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, where are you going with it? I'd love to talk with some other people about it.
Yeah, me too. If there was another podcast we could listen to that we could talk to that wasn't necessarily Star Trek, because we wouldn't want to do that. That seems incestuous. But maybe another science fiction. Wait, I have an idea. Jonathan, have you heard of Continuum Drag, the podcast Continuum Drag?
Oh, yeah, where they watch forgotten sci-fi TV shows and movies and just kind of give their own spin on what happens?
Yeah. How about them? I bet you they would love to talk about this episode. I think they would love it.
So how about this? Let's reach out to them. Since we just watched this episode, let's reach out to them and see if they want to do a collaboration on discussing time travel. And we'll bring Timeless to the table. They'll bring their Time Travelers episode to the table. And we can just kind of talk.
That sounds like a great idea. It sounds like such a great idea. Like, it sounds like it's already happened. And we're pretending like it hasn't happened yet. But in fact, we've already had the conversation. Is that possible?
Well, yes and no. So we will have already recorded it, and future us have already brought it back to us. So we do have it.
We just haven't
recorded it yet. Yeah,
exactly. So let's go watch it. What?
Let's go discuss it.
Yeah, let's go keep discussing it. So stay tuned for a special collaboration episode with Continuum Drag, the podcast,
later this week,
as we talk about time travel, a little bit more about Star Trek, and some obscure other time travel stuff that isn't Star Trek.
Yeah, things like Back to the Future. Those lesser known things.
Right. Back to the Future and Back to the Future.
And Bill and Ted. We talk about Bill and Ted.
We do talk about Bill and Ted. Yeah, two staples.
Or do we? Shoot, we don't know yet. We haven't recorded it.
I'm just guessing. I mean, obviously, we're talking about time travel. We're going to talk about those two things.
Oh, true.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
All right. So tune in next time on The Measure of an Episode. We have no outro that isn't our normal outro.
Right.
We just have to keep recording until the next week.
Shoot.
Star Trek Enterprise. Because I think it's Star Trek, not just Enterprise at this point.
Okay.
Season 3, Episode 6, Exile. Hoshi Sato is contacted by a 400-year-old telepathic alien exiled on a planet in the Expanse, shunned by his society because of his abilities. Now that makes me kind of excited.
Right? That looks pretty cool.
I'm super excited about it. Yeah, it looks awesome. So, all right, I've got nothing to say about that. I mean, usually the Enterprise blurbs are right on track. So,
yeah,
as long as this isn't about Phlox again,
right? I mean, he's been stealing the show. So.
This is, I like Phlox. Got to mix it up a little bit. Though.
Yeah,
but yeah,
cool. Let's go watch it.
All right.